Well, good morning. I'm now at Framfield for the start of day 4 of my anniversary trek across East Sussex for East Sussex WRAS. So today I'm actually starting at a rescue location just on the edge of Framfield, and literally just across the road here, just in these bushes here, we actually had 2 deer entangled together. They started further off down the road and actually travelled for about half a mile before they were in a position where we could actually catch them and secure them and release them. That was the 26th of October 2021, and amazingly on the 26th of October last year, further down the road, we had another double deer rescue, which I'll tell you more about in a moment. Well, it's about half a mile since I left Framfield now, and it is literally across this field, up this driveway here, where those double deer started, and we had to track them all of the way in towards Framfield. So as I mentioned earlier, we dealt with 2 double deer rescues. The second one was just down the lane here at Highlands. And by double deer rescues, what we mean is 2 which are entangled together in the same rope. Generally, one of them will become entangled. They might break free, or somebody cuts them free, so they run off with the rope still attached. They start rutting, and then the second deer becomes attached and tied to the first deer. So they're very, very difficult rescues to deal with, and there's a high chance that one of the deer will die or have a heart attack during the rescue. Often we come across them where one of them is already dead, sadly. Anyway, on towards Uckfield. I'm just east of Uckfield on Hempstead Lane, and it's here where we did the very first badger vaccination work in East Sussex with the Sussex Badger Vaccination Project, who we supported very heavily. Sadly, the project closed as a result of changes in licensing, and the government wanted us to have such a large area of continuity of land that it was just impossible for us to achieve that, and therefore we couldn't renew the license, and sadly the project had to close. So I'm now in Roman Way in Uckfield, and Roman Way in 2020 turned out to be a very popular site for us, which involved the fire brigade coming out and having to rescue a sparrow that was attached to a chimney pot. We had a long-winded rescue of some mum and ducklings, where 3 of the ducklings had fallen down drains, and we had to spend ages trying to get them out. And even the fire brigade had to come out after a duck decided to nest in a false chimney. And of course, all the youngsters, they hatch, their youngsters are in this false chimney and just can't get out. So they had to be rescued and brought in for care. So yeah, and that was all in 1 year, and just in 2020. So I'm now in Uckfield town centre. You've got the railway station and the high street just behind me. Further down the old disused railway line here, you get to Uckfield Wastewater Treatment Works. And in July 2013, Keith and I had the job of rescuing a badger that had fallen into one of their wastewater treatment tanks. The tank was luckily empty, much to our relief, and we had the job of catching it and then climbing out with it. Of course, because it was the daytime, we couldn't just release it straight away because of the risk of it running across the A22 or causing an accident. So we had to keep it in for the night, wait until it was about midnight, and that's when we took it back and released it, when it was nice and quiet and able to run off with relatively safety. I'm now at Mallard Drive in Uckfield, and this is one of the many toad crossing sites here. So this whole circular road and estate here has a pond in the middle, just here. and the toads migrate from all the people's gardens, the woodlands and everywhere surrounding, all to try and get to this pond. But it means they've got this busy road which needs crossing, and obviously a lot of them do get run over. But the local residents here have formed themselves a little group, and at night time, especially when it's wet and damp, they patrol round the road here, picking up the toads and moving them across so that they can safely get to one of their spawning ponds here, and successfully breed for another year. Well, in August last year, we got called to over 100 ducks roaming across the Eastbourne Road and then through this estate. This is Fernley Park in Uckfield, and the local residents were trying to keep them off of the main road to avoid accidents. We helped them to get them to safety at a larger pond down the road there, but they kept day after day coming back up through the estate and getting in the way of all the traffic and everything. So eventually, after a few days of this, we managed to catch about 80 of them and take them to the Retreat Animal Rescue Centre near Ashford, which is where they are today. There's still a few ducks still here, but not too many luckily, and they're not causing too much trouble. Fernley Park is also a site where we've had numerous rescues, be it on, I think it was Valentine's Day, I think 2018, something like that. We had a deer in a stream right down the very end of the estate. We've also had mum and ducklings here, and we've had ducklings down drains, all sorts, all over this estate. I'm now in Ridgewood, not far from Millennium Green. So down the end of this track here, there's a farm, and we got called down here in 2015 for a deer that had its antlers attached to a barbed wire fence because of some baler twine. And unfortunately, the deer was right on a fairly steep bank of a stream, making it quite a difficult and precarious rescue. I actually had to get in the stream and, of course, get wet, the usual situation, in order to successfully rescue that deer and eventually set it free. Also in 2015, up at Sand Ridge, which is the top of the hill here, we dealt with a deer that was trapped in an enclosure at the top of a sandstone ridge. So it either had a 40-foot drop onto a car park, or it had to try and get over a chain link fence. It managed to jump in there, but because of all the vegetation and the narrow gap, it couldn't get back out again. And that's when we had to come along and rescue it and release it nearby, which meant transporting it away from where it was rescued to a safer location so that it wouldn't cause any road accidents. Well, I'm now at Isfield Recreation Ground, and over the far side here by the playground we rescued a little kestrel. It was during the winter months, it was very, very cold, and this poor thing was struggling to fly. Didn't have any broken bones, it was absolutely fine other than the fact that it was just so underweight and just didn't have the energy to fly. Common problem during the winter months where birds, especially birds of prey, are struggling because they can't find enough food to eat. There we go, so that's the end of day 4. I've come from Framfield into Uckfield and down to Isfield, where I'm now finishing for the day. So on Friday, a couple of days time, I will be walking all the way down to Lewis for the next leg of my journey. I hope you've enjoyed sort of seeing some of the footage and some of the locations where these rescues have occurred. Please do support me, sponsor me, support East Sussex Wildlife Rescue. Funding's really, really difficult for organisations like us, and we really need to be out there to sort of readdress the balance with all the housing and the vehicles and the roads that are around. It really is a struggle for our wildlife, and we really need to address that balance, but we can only do it with your support. Thank you.